authors wrote books about the upcoming crisis. This will happen. But warnings were ignored by the politicians. So then we had the crisis. And so then I would like to ask, is this a market failure, which is commonly heard in the debate? Is this a failure of the markets? No. It is basically a failure of politics, because it was government intervention with these purposes in the housing market that created the core of the crisis. But having said that, there would have, even without that, there would have been bubbles and downturns. There will always be downturns in the economy, and there will always be a tendency sometimes to create bubbles, like the IT bubble, and you can go back to the 1600s in the Netherlands with a tulip bubble. So there will always be bubbles, definitely, and downturns. That's part of the creative destruction of the market economy, where old jobs and old products have to go and leave space for the new. But the downturns and the bubbles will never be as severe as this financial crisis if you don't have substantial government involvement. But having said that, of course, government has a role in financial markets. Governments should set light and transparent regulation. So they should set regulations, but they should not be the player in the market. And that's what they did, and that's what was wrong. And so now we have had to have a number of bailouts throughout the Western world, where governments have had to intervene in the financial markets to save the functioning of the financial markets and to save individual financial institutions. That has been something that has been necessary to do. It is sad that it has to be done, because government has to clean up what government caused. But it is imperative that we remember that after the bailout, there has to be pullout. Government should not remain as a main owner and main player in the financial markets. This should just be a temporary savement, and then governments should pull out of the financial markets again. Because if we look at the long-term perspective, I think that you voted about when you think there will be a change in the economy again, and certainly it will be turning up, but we will always have a need for long-term reform to improve competitiveness and to improve long-term growth rates. And so we have a changing world with new opportunities, of course, but also trends like globalization and the demographic development, and these things all mean that we have to do far-reaching free market reforms, because even countries like Estonia have done lots and lots of impressive things. There are things that remain to be done, like lower taxes. That's maybe more of a problem for my country than your country, but we have to have lower taxes throughout the Western world, because with lower taxes we can have more space for companies and people to interact in the free economy and create more wealth. We should liberate welfare services, which are now, education and healthcare are in most countries trapped in centrally planned government systems, so that we citizens don't at all get the education and healthcare they demand, which they could have if there was more entrepreneurship and choice and competition in these sectors. And I think we also need choice in social security and pensions. That's one of the main expenditures in most countries of government. So we should have, why should people only have to rely on government to have an income when they get ill or retired? Why shouldn't they be able to keep their money and buy a private alternative instead? So I think we need more choice, and of course we need to free up labor markets, because most countries have a problem with low flexibility, which produces unemployment. And we need free financial markets, because free financial markets have been a central part of the great golden age that I described, because we did free up financial markets to an extent in the 1980s and 90s, and that was very important for the investments to be able to grow all over the world, and also for investments to be allocated in poor countries with the poverty reduction that we saw. So we need free financial markets, and that is why government should set simple, transparent regulation, yes, and we should save the financial system right now in the crisis, but then government should pull out of the financial markets. I also think that when we look at Eastern and Central Europe, which I would like to add Estonia for the moment, I think that these countries have been doing so enormously impressive things during the past 15 years, but I also think it's quite apparent that they have lost reform pace during the past few years, and that I think that, not speaking about Estonia specifically, but I think that in general, we could need more of an ambitious reform agenda in this region. So just to sum up, before I look forward to your questions and your perhaps objections, I would like to say that what we have is a chance for Europe. The crisis may not be a chance, but we right now have a big chance to improve our prospects for the future. So first of all, it's essential that we avoid protectionism. Because this crisis, when people run for Karl Marx or Colbert, not specifically but for their ideas, I think that's the ideas of protectionism. That's the ideas of government intervention. We must avoid that, because that will dig us into a hole and dig this crisis a whole lot deeper. You know, France's President Nicolas Sarkozy, for instance, he proposed that we should create European wealth funds. That is, we should take money from European taxpayers and put in funds, and the funds should buy European companies so that we should avoid foreign ownership of companies. I think that's a very destructive idea, because we should not be competing in socializing our companies in Europe. We should be competing in creating great conditions for companies in Europe. And we should welcome any foreign owners and foreign investments that we can possibly attract to Europe. So that's the kind of proposals we have in the debate, and we must avoid it. And we should also push for more global free trade. And I think this crisis is a time for leadership with principles where leaders don't feel that they have to follow the public opinion of rushing to more government and more protectionism, but saying that no, that's exactly what we should not do, because that was done in the 1930s, and that created an enormous downward spiral for the global economy, and also had severe political effects. So there's a time for leadership right now, because when it's blowing, the real leaders will be standing up. And the crisis is definitely stressing the need for further reform. This is no time to say that we should stop reforming. This is definitely a time to say now it's time to speed up the reforms that we knew all the time that we should be doing anyway. And so let me just sum up by saying that, you know, Luxembourg's Prime Minister, Jean-Claude Juncker, he once said that we all know what to do, we just don't know how to get re-elected once we've done it. And I have that as a starting point of my book. And my point is that great if we know what we should do. We should increase economic freedom. We should aim for long-term structural free market reforms. That's great. But we also know how to do it, because a number of countries have done it. And we can learn from what they did, what results they had, and also how they did it. Because most of these governments were actually re-elected. And so when we have managed to, you know, do the crisis management, which is now very important that we're doing, we should not lose sight of the long-term structural free market reforms, because we know what to do and we actually know how to do it. Thank you.